Hi, everyone. I'm V. Spehar from the James Beard Foundation, back again on this Monday with another edition of the Industry Support Sessions. Today, we will be covering So You Want to Write a Cookbook, original title, So You Want to Write a Cookbook, Well, Bless Your Heart. So today we have some of our favorite cookbook authors, chefs, and editors joining us to talk about the dream of writing a cookbook, best practices, stuff to know, tips and tricks. And in a world where basically everyone has a cookbook, I mean, I pulled a couple of my favorites. If you're not aware, the James Beard Foundation has a Waste Not Cookbook. Wonderful thing for this time of year, you know, as we're all trying to make the most out of it. But even folks like the WWE have a cookbook. For crying out loud, my grandmother wrote her own cookbook and had it published. So it's something that no matter where you fall within the spectrum, if this is your dream, we want to see you achieve that dream, and we want to give you the best possible chance at cutting through the fog. So here at James Beard Foundation, as you know, we're updating multiple times a day, jamesbeard.org/relief. That has all the information on funding that may be available to you, changes in policy, advocacy, and links to get the past webinars and see the future webinars. So you're going to want to check out jamesbeard.org/relief or jamesbeard.org/industry-support-sessions, webinars. And we'll put those links up at the end. What we also want to say today is we appreciate so much you taking the time to come and join us and learn a little bit, have a little break from the day even. We want this to be a really peer-to-peer, off-the-record kind of conversation where folks are going to share what's worked for them. It may not be something that works for you exactly, but it's what has worked for other folks. So take it with a grain of salt, see how you can interpret what they're saying to your own voice and authenticity, so that when you're going forward as yourself, and you have the best chance of success in that way. So again, keep it as a peer-to-peer friendly conversation. We want this to also be really interactive. This is one of our most attended webinars. It's right up there with the CARES Act. So we are really excited and want to hear from everybody. If you have questions as we're going along, or if you have questions that we'll hold to the end, put those into the chat. Emily's going to talk to you a little bit about how to interact with us.
Yeah, so we are recording this webinar. We're going to send it out after this wraps with a link to where you can view this webinar as well as all of our past webinars that we've done. And on that page, you can also see a schedule of our upcoming webinars, and we have a couple of really cool ones coming up this week. Like V said, we're going to save those questions for the end, but we know that sometimes, you know, something will come up as you're thinking about it. So we encourage you to just send it through using the questions box, and we will send those through and try to get to everybody. If you're having technical difficulties, just send us a message either using the chat function or the questions function, and we will try to help you troubleshoot that.
Excellent. Thanks, Emily. So we're going to hear from Cynthia and Shaun and Virginia all today. They each have prepared a really impressive presentation. But first, we're going to start with Virginia Willis. Tell us a little bit about cookbook authoring. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here on this webinar. So my name is Virginia Willis. I'm a chef and cookbook author based out of Atlanta, Georgia, as you can hear from my accent. And we met at the beer dinner that was in October for Natalie Dupree's 80th birthday. And
still the best party I've ever been to.
Yay! So, and it's really appropriate that Natalie comes up at the very top of this, because my first job cooking was in a test kitchen cooking for Natalie Dupree as a complete novice, had no idea what I was doing, and she started me off, you know, grocery shopping and testing recipes and things like that. So my first job cooking was essentially working with cookbooks, and that's what led me to my career today.
So tell us a little bit about what folks might want to think about when they're getting into cookbook authoring.
Cookbook authoring, right? So y'all, the first thing I want to say is that everyone's going to have a different cookbook. These grandmother's cookbook versus a chef tablecloth coffee table cookbook. But the thing that's the most important is that it is your cookbook, right? So you can look at different cookbooks in terms of what you think is interesting, in terms of the size of it, of the photography, of the level. but there's a little bit of backing up that we have to do to get there. And I'm going to start off by talking about marketing, digital presence and platform, and brand building. Because, and Cynthia will sort of get this and you'll understand it as it sort of goes through the process. But going to a small regional publisher, say like a really small, like a university press or something like that, and then considering like some of the larger publishers, Random House, Clarkson and Potter, those really big publishing companies, there's a lot of room in between. But regardless of where you want to fall or where you do fall in that spectrum, they have to know who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I'm going to do is to talk about a media toolkit and what marketing is and how to do it. So especially if we have some restaurant chefs online, it's important to consider to differentiate between yourself, the person, and the restaurant, right? Whether you are not the chef owner, and obviously we're in really troubling times for restaurants. We know this. So, but one way or the other, that sort of has to be differentiated. Even more so if you are the chef at a restaurant and not the chef owner. So that's important. But one way or the other, you have to do marketing, and this is different than say marketing your restaurant, right? So marketing is essentially the selling and promotion of products and services. And since you are trying to write a cookbook, essentially you need to sell yourself first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like marketing and selling of yourself first. And we have a tendency, I think women especially can have a tendency of having a hesitation of doing that. We're sort of taught to be a bit more quiet and deferential, but there is a saying, like, if you don't toot your own horn, then who's going to toot it for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the other part of it is that an agent and publishing companies, now more than ever, it's super important that they know who you are, that they're able to find you online, et cetera. So let me just kind of jump into a couple things that I think are really important. The first of which is what is called like a media toolkit. And this is something that if anyone from like a little small mommy blogger contacts you to the New York Times, right? One end to the other, that you should have as a person who's like putting themselves out into the ether to want to write a cookbook, that you should have these tools ready to go, so that you're not scrambling, right? So that you're ready, so that your mise en place is ready. And the first thing is a talent profile. And on that talent profile, it can just be like a one sheet, right? It's just a one sheet of paper. It's got your, it's sort of like a condensed resume. So it'll have your name, your contact information, I would put like any logos of any companies that you've dealt with. Let's say you've got clients that are Coke or George Organics or whomever, that might be a section. Another section might be media hits. So like on my talent profile, which is available on my website, which I should tell you at this point, marketing is virginiawillis.com. So there is a talent profile, and I have logos of all of the media companies that I've had any interaction with. And the reason I have logos instead of a list is because it's visual, right? And so people would rather look at that. Another thing that I think is important to have on that, you need to have your headshot. You can have like a little, really super little short, almost like a tagline. So if someone wants to know who you are, consider it somewhere between a business card and a website. And then basically it's like one sheet of paper that you've created that's available in a PDF form. And it should go, if you're a restaurateur, it should go on your restaurant website in the About section or the press section, something like that. You know, the thing that I always consider is that when a journalist outreaches to anyone, or if you're trying to become someone that's outreached to it by a journalist, you need to have that information ready. And so another piece would be to have those bios ready, right? To have a bio, like as soon as you asked us to participate in this event today, you asked me for my bio. I don't need to
And
be
I asked you because I knew you'd have it. Exactly.
Well, you have to have it. They have to have it, right? So, a short one, meaning like 100 words or less, a medium, like 250, and then a full page. And anyone needs to have those ready to go. Boom. And what I do is I keep them in my Dropbox. That means it's accessible on my phone. And that the minute that anyone asks me for something like that, boom, it's ready to go. The thing is, in this day and age with so much immediate gratification, is that people want it immediately, right? So you need to have that ready to go. And then another thing that's absolutely imperative that you need to have ready to go is a headshot, like a headshot that you like. You know, and it can be put on a phone or something sometimes, but the reality is that if it's going to be ever going to be in print, then they'll probably or possibly need a higher quality than that. So that's like a little media toolkit. Your the one sheet, the 3 different bios, an image of yourself, one that you like. You used to have a couple, and then the 4th part of that media toolkit. And I really encourage chefs and restaurateurs to have this, is have some recipes ready to go. And this is marketing 101. Oh my God, I love that XYZ that I had at your restaurant. Or, oh my God, I heard you make the best XYZ. I'd love to feature that in the PTA newsletter or the New York Times. You know what? They should be treated the same. And I hate that if Kim Severson is watching right now. But it's the same level of respect, right? It's the same level of respect because someone wants to know more about it.
And we heard a lot about that as a great point, even in the TikTok seminar that we did last week, whether you are young and an Instagram influencer and going that way, people who are making decisions, people who are going to pay for this content, they need these things. We have to have them to be able to book you, to be able to move you forward. And it's those investments in something like just one really good headshot session, and not necessarily like your mom with a great camera, but like just invest in a local photographer, someone who you can get a decent shot of yourself with, those recipes, and that bio is so incredibly important because folks won't wait. They won't be able to wait.
No, they won't. And so the photography is important. So like one thing that have done in the past is if a magazine or a journalist comes and does a piece about you and they bring a photographer and they use that photography like in a piece, then contact the photographer afterwards and ask them if you can buy the rights to that piece. So that's a way sometimes to get it cheaper. I actually just put out a call myself to get some new headshots done because I've lost some weight. And so I had the range was from $250 to $8,000.
Wow. Yeah.
Just to say I passed on the 8,000. But you know, there's a wide range in there. So those things are important because what needs it to the next level. So that's like the absolute fundamental. But then we all know how important video is, right? And digital presence and making sure that that works. And you think, well, what does this have to do with writing a cookbook? It has everything to do with writing a cookbook because people, agents, publishing companies have to know who you are. And one thing that I always talk to people about is in terms of platform and in terms of how you're found online. It is so important to be authentic and to be yourself. And it sounds self-evident, but unfortunately it's not. And my y'all brand, my sort of Virginia Willis, like nice, kind of saucy, sassy Southern girl, is consistent on all my social media platforms and on my website. So I want to talk I'm going to run through kind of quickly some things for folks for platform. So platform is visibility, right? So you want to make sure that you're seen. Platform is authority. And what are your credentials? If you want to write if you want to write a cookbook about Pacific Northwest cooking, if you're not from the Pacific Northwest, then you need to have spent a hell of a lot of time there, right? You know, it can get dicey with appropriation. So if you're going to be delving into a community that you're not of that birth, then you need to have a heck of a lot of authority in it. Another thing that's important in terms of platform is proven reach. You know, I do a lot of influencer campaigns, and it's not enough to say that you have these numbers. Increasingly, marketing companies, agents, publishing companies, all those people, they want to look at your actual metrics. So they want the facts. That's what they're paying for. And then the next thing in terms of platform, something to consider, it's not just enough to have like a ton of numbers. And we've seen that with people buying, buying social media, which don't ever do that. Just don't do
They
that.
said that at TikTok too.
Don't do that. Like, why would
Yep.
you do that? It's lying. At the
Yes.
bottom, it's lying. That's all it is.
Right.
So you need a target audience. So, what is your target audience? And it's interesting. Like if I look at my website, for example, crazy enough, and I don't know how this works, and I'm glad that it does, my demographics are about the same all the way across. I am nearly as appealing to 20-year-olds as I am to 60-year-olds. And that's something that you have to know, right? Because let's just pretend that my demographics were greater, and you can see this on your Facebook accounts, you can see this on all of your Instagram accounts, all of your social media accounts. But look and see who your target audience is. And then you can also look at it on your website. You can tell all of that is available because we're all mineable, right? All of our data is mineable.
Right.
So that has a lot to do with digital presence and platform and just being consistent. And I think that one thing that sort of happened, especially in the past couple of weeks with the coronavirus and everyone staying home, is that everybody and their brother is doing cooking videos, which is kind of awesome, right? It's amazing that we all have this like ability to make a cooking show on our phones. I think that it'll be interesting to see sort of what shakes out, right? Like see who's able to sort of stay online. And that has a lot to do with like just brand and brand consistency and knowing what you're talking about, having that authority, having that credibility.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is it even if you just want to be an author, right? You have the greatest recipes in the world. You want to be a cookbook author, and that's really where you see yourself going. Maybe you're not someone who sees yourself as like a brand out there, like really forward or extroverted. You kind of have to set that up and make that a part of your brand. You still have to be visual, because just like we heard in TikTok, an agent and a manager are wonderful things to have to negotiate contracts and to pitch you for the next one. But for them to get you in the first place, you've got to show them who you are, and that work is done by you in the upfront by getting your bio together, getting your headshot together, letting people know, you're a little bit more quiet, you're a little more shy, reserved, whatever the case may be. That's all still part of your brand. You don't have to be a shining, screamer, but knowing that and owning it is important. And then knowing who your audience is and knowing even the intricacies of that audience. So if you're pitching someone and they want to know, what are your metrics for women 18 to 24, you know that. And that lets you know, even in reverse, when you're looking at your metrics, being surprised by what audience most resonates with you and owning that too, and then going after those publications and saying, hey, I'm really strong with this, that, or the other.
Exactly. It's just like using the tools that are available to us now. I'm trying not to have a glare, but using the tools that are available to us now to help do that. So it's awesome if you want to write a cookbook, but there's some structure to get there on a lot of times.
So tell me a little more about what we need to do before we get into pitching, because we did just get a great question on pitching, and I will address that at the end. I just want whoever asked that question to know we're going to get to it.
Okay. I think that maybe because I'm hitting my time right now. So let me should we talk a little bit, just a short bit about the nuts and the bolts, and then we'll go real quickly to Cynthia to talk about agents and things like that. So one of the things that I want everyone to consider is the practical finances of it. And especially right now, it's like, okay, what's happening, and the ripple effect of everything is everything. So some of the practical finances is the likelihood that you're going to retire rich as a cookbook author are none. That's the odds, 0, right? So there are some practical finances to consider. Once you've gotten that agent, once you've done your marketing and your branding and all that kind of stuff, an advance can run anywhere from like say $3,000 up to 6 figures, but the 6 figures is like a $100,000. That's very few and far between. And it also is often spread out over the course of maybe 2 years. Off the top of that, 15% goes automatically to the agent. So just to say for kicks and giggles that you've gotten this $100,000 book deal. So 15% off the top goes to the agent. Often the photography, not always, but often the photography is included in that budget. So you can deduct easily another 25 grand from that $100,000 for that. All of your testing has to come out of that $100,000. And then so what? So that's like $40,000 or so, 50,000 tops, maybe spread out over the course of 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
It's not going to make anyone rich, but there's a lot of value in writing cookbooks and sharing recipes that don't necessarily have to, being rich isn't everything, right? It's having a rich life and contributing.
Well, it's a tool. It's a tool to advance your brand. It's a tool to advance your cooking, to get your message out there in the world. It's a piece of what you're going to be able to do as a chef.
Right. No, it's true. It's very true. So, and those are like the sort of the nuts and the bolts in my mind. That's how my head is built. It's like, okay, this is what I need to get someone's attention, and this is what I'm looking at in the very beginning to sort of like, figure out which direction to go into.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Virginia. Very thoughtful and very honest, and we appreciate that. And the thing I heard most of this is authenticity. You have to know yourself and put yourself on the page.
Exactly.
So thank you. We're going to go to Cynthia now, and Virginia will be back at the end, and she's going to answer more of your questions, but we're going to head on over. Cynthia Graubart has a few additional tips and tricks on getting started writing your cookbook. So now you kind of know what you can expect, and now Cynthia's going to tell you how to get started.
So if we haven't completely scared you off already, here are a few things you need to know to get started. We're going to circle back to the question of audience quite a bit, because it's crucial that you understand your audience. But let's start with the proposal. An incredibly important document. You're going to spend a lot of time working on it, and you want it to be right. It is the tool that you use that you will communicate your ideas to your agent and to your editor publisher. So this becomes essentially the road of what your book is about. So you want to spend time to be careful with it. And I even tell people that want to self-publish that the process of doing a proposal, even if it's just for yourself, is incredibly valuable, because you must ask yourself a long list of questions that will focus your work. So what you need to have are several key things. So you will have already worked on your bio if you follow Virginia's plan, and that's important. So you want a good bio that talks about your strengths and your experience. You're going to want to have a write-up of what this book is really about. So get all your ideas together on what does this book encompass. Then you're going to want a table of contents and a list of recipes. And in addition, most publishers will want a sample chapter. And that means a sample chapter. So that means full recipes with all the recipe components involved. So those are the basic tools that you're going to want in your proposal. And then there are a couple of extras that an agent will guide you on, or a publisher will request. And the most significant one is the market analysis. So because you've done the work on understanding who your audience is, you're going to be ready to do this. And what you need to know about your audience is, what are they cooking now? What are they reading now? What are they buying now? How are they using recipes in their life right now that relate to your subject? And then you're going to want to take a look at the top 5 or 6 cookbooks that you would consider to be similar in some way, or even competition for you and your idea. And take a really close look at that. Look at the structure of the book, look at how the books have been reviewed, really take an overall delve into that material. And then you're going to write up something about each of those 5 or 6 cookbooks, how yours is similar and how yours is different. And this marks what is commonly referred to as your point of differentiation. So you may have a great idea for a book, and maybe this is a common idea and a lot of books have been written about it. That's not necessarily bad, so long as you have a different voice and a different approach. So that's why it's important to do your market analysis. And it's equally as important if you're self-publishing, because you are in charge of your marketing and you need to understand the audience and your audience needs.
Yeah, Cynthia, it sounds like what Virginia was telling us about getting prepared with who we are. We also need to know who everyone else is and write a little book report maybe so we can understand, I want to write a book about pecans. Well, I better know every book about pecans that's out there and make sure mine isn't a ripoff in some way or is seen as a copy, or maybe it just got published and it's saturated. So you got to know about yourself and you got to know about everybody else.
It's incredibly informative. It's a wonderful exercise. It can be daunting and it can be disappointing, but it's also incredibly empowering. So know who your audience is and know what they're buying and how they're using recipes. The other thing that may or may not be a component that is in your proposal, depending on what your agent and the publisher require, is photos. And if you have a look that you're going for that you really think is essential to communicating your recipes, then it's probably a good idea to include some photos that have that feel, so that you're upfront about that. Also, if there's a particular photographer that you really want to work with and are willing to go to the mat for, you might want to introduce those photos from that photographer in your proposal document. You're also going to want to put your social metrics in, because just like Virginia said, these are numbers that publishers want. And don't be dismayed if your numbers aren't stellar. They want to know the numbers. They need to know what they are. And in fact, for brand influencers, they're starting to ask for logins so they can see the metrics themselves, not your self-reported metrics. So it's a very serious topic. But don't be dismayed if your numbers are not there. Keep working, keep reaching out to people, making connections, and putting good content out in social media. And those all help your numbers, and you'll be able to report good metrics in your proposal.
So Cynthia, we have a quick question that's relevant to that exact topic. You said, if there's a certain photographer you're working with, or if you have a certain look or style, there's a lot of the chefs that are looking to get into this are also photographers, sometimes professional. Is it looked down upon if you say you're going to self photography, or you just got to prove that it's going to look good?
You just have to prove it's going to look good.
Okay.
You can sell that idea. You can definitely sell that idea, but you have to be good at what you do. And publishers are not quick to jump on that. I'll tell you right off. It's not going to be something they're going to get excited about. So you doubly have to prove that you have the skill, and you can make it count. But definitely, boy, if that's your skill, go for it.
Yeah, it's part of the story then, right? You're the chef, the recipe, the memoir, and the photographer. There might be something to that.
Exactly. So now I think let's spend the rest of our time talking about research, writing, and testing on the next slide. So the first element is research. So you have a great idea for a book, and you think this is a book that people need, and you're ready to get started. Where do you start? People ask me all the time, where do you get your recipes? First of all, you don't want them to be OPRs, other people's recipes. Do not steal recipes, period, end of story. Certainly we all have seen what has happened in years past with food bloggers. I'm seeing a lot more attribution, but it's still a problem area. So you don't steal people's recipes. But what you do is you gather your resources and you study cookbooks, study ones that are similar, study the subject matter so you can become an authority. And culinary historians actually are a fabulous resource because they know how recipes have changed over time, and that can also be really informative for recipe development. So you want to take a look at all of those resources. Also, somebody like Harold McGee and Shirley Corrier, people that know the science of why recipes work. They're excellent sources when you are putting together your recipe and you're having trouble with one, look to those folks, read their books, understand why your recipe isn't working and how you can tweak it to make it work. Then you're going to move on to the actual writing of your recipes, the real nitty gritty of it. And there's a way to do that. And you want to first look at your ingredients. When you're actually writing the recipe, take a look at your ingredients. You must write the ingredient list in the order for which the ingredients are called in the recipe. This is a good way to assist the person who's actually going to make that recipe. Even so far as, let's say you're going to whisk together salt and baking soda and flour and baking powder. If those ingredients are combined together, then in the recipe list, you're going to list the largest one, the largest amount, flour first, and then baking powder, baking soda, and then salt. In addition, when you're describing an ingredient, there is a difference between 1 cup olives and 1 cup olives chopped and 1 cup chopped olives. Know, understand recipe language. There is a difference. And those of us who do this professionally are very careful with how we write it. It's because we want people to be successful when they make our recipes. Anybody can grab a recipe offline, go online, grab a recipe, print it out. But if you're not using a good solid source, then you're not getting a recipe that's been tested and vetted. And you want to become a reliable source for good recipes.
Absolutely.
So move on to writing your directions. You want to be clear in your language about directions. I'm a cooking teacher. I can promise you, you can never underestimate what people don't know. Astonishing. So you want to be really clear in your language about how to put that recipe together. You want to call for the pan size. If you say mix it in a stand mixer, you got to tell them if it's a paddle or a whisk. They do not know. Want to really take a look at your directions and make them clear. Another big area is tests for doneness. When is something done? Well, it's not just a time. It's not 10 minutes. It's until it begins to turn light golden brown, or it sizzles, or it becomes thick and creamy, and all of this. So tests for doneness are really important. I'm lucky I have several recipes written in my grandmother's hand, and every single one of them ends with cook till done.
Cook till done. I love that. That's an incredibly good point.
Not helpful, Grandma, thanks. So then the last part of the recipe, actual writing of the recipe, is the fun part, is the head note. And this is where your voice comes in. Well, your voice is also in the directions, but it's the head note. Tell me, you must sell me on why I need to write that recipe, make that recipe. Why should I bother to make it? It's okay. Tell me it's your grandmother's recipe. Tell me how important it is to your family. That's great. But also tell me what to expect. I want my blocks up in the head note. Do not let me get to the end of step number 6 before 7 steps saying it needs to marinate for 24 hours.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me in the head note.
Make it conversational, make it.
Yeah. So tell people what to expect. They're more likely to make it and have a good outcome rather than be disappointed. And that's the worst thing that can happen, is somebody make one of your recipes and be disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish with my last point, which is about testing. And this is crucial. You must do it. It is astonishing to me that in this day and age that a cookbook can actually get printed where the recipes have never been made before. Don't ask me how, but it happens. So you must have made them yourself, written them, and you must have made them yourself. And take it a step further. You can get friends to make your recipes. You can ask on Facebook. You can create a Google form and ask people to respond after making it. But you also must align your expectations, because if people are not professional, they're going to use the wrong pan size, they're going to substitute ingredients, and it can be incredibly frustrating to you. So you have to know how you're really going to use that feedback. I find it very informative because then I understand how a home cook is going to use my recipe and what
Right.
kind of are they, how they're going to screw it up, and what can I write in the recipe to help them be successful? So can I tell them they can use a different size pan? Can I tell them that an ingredient substitution that might work? Those are the kind of things that you're looking for in your testing, and that your language is clear. You're going to find out if your language is not clear because you're going to find out what they have made up that you thought they would understand.
Right.
I must
And that was
say,
one of the, go ahead.
I must say, I love writing cookbooks. I just turned in my 11th,
Ooh.
and it's really incredibly rewarding. And following these steps and the advice from the three of us today will really get you on the way to success.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. 11 cookbooks. Yes, getting after it. And that answers one of the questions that just came in about recipe testing. A point that you just made is, how do you find recipe testers? It's asking your chef friends. It's also asking people who aren't good cooks.
You know, if you connect with other cookbook authors, there are lots of cookbook authors that use people who test professionally. So you can reach out through your social media and ask. I do not use professional testers. I use family and friends. I find that really informative, and helps me really key into exactly how I need to communicate. But yes, there are people that do it professionally, but they also will be paid. I don't pay my family and friends. They get to eat things.
Very, very nice, Cynthia. Thank you. And we've got a ton of great questions, which we will, I promise you, get to you at the end. Cynthia, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to invite now Shaun to, there she is, to
Hello.
take us through a little bit more of what editors are looking for, which will answer several of the questions that came in. Shaun, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what our editors are looking for.
Sure. So I was a development editor for Time Inc. I specialize in developing cookbooks that were healthy. And my job was to look for new voices to bring into the publishing house. So I did a lot of time scouting and meeting chefs and food professionals, and then helping them shape their proposals and seeing that project all the way from proposal to getting on the shelf. After that, I left publishing at the publishing house, and I owned a content marketing agency that specialized in helping brands develop cookbooks to help sell their products. And I also do freelance editing. And right now I'm working on starting a tech company that helps people create their own cookbooks for health reasons. So I kind of know this business from a couple of different angles. One of the books that I worked on while I was at Time Inc. Won a James Beard Award. It was written by Keith Schroeder, and it won a book for health. And he was a first-time author. And the relationship that you have with an editor can help you win an award. It was called Mad Delicious. And so it's really important to have a great relationship with your editor. I know a lot of people right now are concerned about what kind of impact the coronavirus will have on the cookbook publishing world. I cannot say, it's still too early, I think, to tell. But I can say some things overall, and also based on the last recession, what happened, that I think we can, guess what might happen going forward. It is true, cookbook publishers are producing fewer titles now. But during the last recession, 3 types of books did well. Book sales overall went down except for 3 categories, and those categories were self-help, religion, and cookbooks. So I think you can see a theme throughout. Right. So you can see a theme throughout all of those. And the other thing I want to say is you don't have to be a celebrity to do well in selling a cookbook. In the recent years, there's been some, even among the top 10 best-selling books, have not all been celebrities. A lot of other categories have included appliance books, such as Instapot, and health books, cookbooks. So you don't have to be a celebrity to do well. And I think going forward, people are likely going to want cookbooks around basic cooking skills. We see a lot of people on social media now. I mean, it's hard to find yeast and flour because everybody's all of a sudden trying to, do some basic things. Comfort food, I think, is going to be a big thing going forward. So it kind of is almost like that culinary self-help kind of book. And then family cooking, I think will do well going forward. And also economy cooking, I think will do well going forward. So those are categories that I think, dealing with what we are now will do well. And so when you think about developing a relationship with an editor, there are several different ways you can publish. So I'm going to really speak toward if you want to work with a publishing house, particularly a large one, but I think there are sort of truths that apply across the board. And even if you're self-publishing, you'll want to nail some of these things down. The first thing I want to say is approach the relationship with a publishing house and with an editor as a business partner as well as a creative talent. And you should look at your proposal not only as a creative proposal of what the book you're trying to create, but also as a business plan. You are creating a product, and the publishing house is going to produce that product for you. And you need to show why you're going to be a good business partner in selling that product. Okay, so that's an important perspective to bring to your proposal. And so when you think about the business of cookbooks and some of the things I talked about as far as how they're approaching the business now, what's going to do well doing forward, cookbooks have to offer something that you can't get on the internet, right? We all know we can get recipes for free on the internet. But there are some things that books as a medium are better at delivering than the internet. And so that's what you really need to hone on. And I don't want you to think that, how do we do that? I can say that when I was at Time Inc., the ebook platform did so poorly financially that we actually shut it down. So there are people who really prefer cooking out of a print cookbook. So
Can you say that one more time about the e-cookbook? Because we got a lot of questions about that. Okay.
Yeah. So when I was at Time Inc., we did an ebook version of every single print book that we had. And at the time, it was a little more advanced because we had color pictures in there and the formatting was exactly the way that you see in a cookbook. So it was a little prettier than what you'd see in Kindle at the time. And we actually, after 2 years, shut that division down because people were not buying ebooks.
Wow.
So print cookbooks, there's still a lot of interest and affinity for them. So, don't think that, it's because the internet is there that you're beat. You really do have something to offer that can do better in a print format and give a better experience than the internet. I like to think of cookbooks as like you're creating this world for somebody to dive into, right? And you can just, like if you're used to reading novels and you just like that escape, a cookbook can create the same kind of experience. And to me, a cookbook is like the best kind of hands-on marketing, like it's sensual, like you're getting somebody to smell and to taste and to feel food. And it's a really sensual tool. And so I think there's still a lot of value in cookbooks. So let me get into, we talked about, cookbooks have to offer something the internet doesn't. Let's get into how do you do that. The first thing is you need to be clear about goals. And there's two kinds of goals. There's your goal. What do you want out of doing a cookbook? I will say now, don't expect to get rich making a cookbook, but you might have other goals. Like, do you want to build your brand? Do you want to market your business? You may own, a cooking store. You may, have a restaurant. They will come back. You may have some other business that you want to use as a marketing tool. You may have a brand and you want to deepen relationships with people, and a cookbook is a great way to do that. So really get clear on what you want out of publishing your cookbook. And I really promote that because when you do get into a publishing house, and your proposal's accepted, all of a sudden you're in this world that's a well-oiled machine. They know all the moves, they know how to make it, how to publish a book. And you can get lost in that unless you know what it is you want and how you want to do it. And you can really be a collaborative partner in creating that. So I really want to empower you to have creative input and control over your cookbook. So be clear about what you want out of doing your book. And that'll help you make decisions going forward. The second thing is be clear about the goal of your book. Like, what do you want your book to accomplish? What do you want the reader's experience to be? So if you can see here, I have some examples of different goals for books. Like, we all know a cookbook, you can get dinner on the table, right? But there are other goals too, right? So for example, Thug Kitchen was really about lifestyle change and helping people learn to go vegan. Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat was a book that teaches people how to use those elements to make good food. So it's a teaching book. Senegal introduces a cuisine and a culture to people, right? And then Red Rooster tells a story and it reads like a novel, right? And so you need to get clear about the goal of your book because that will influence all kinds of decisions. What format your book should be? Should it be hardcover? Should it be paperback? What kinds of pictures should be in there? It should influence what kind of recipes you choose to put in the book, right? So let's talk about your focus. So even though you might have a similar goal as other cookbook authors, every book is going to have a different focus. And this will help you with the positioning that Virginia was talking about early on. So if we look at the lifestyle change category, I have 4 books down there that are all kind of in the lifestyle category, but they all have a different focus, right? So Thug Kitchen is passionately go vegan, right? Excuse me.
Yeah, grab some water.
And Ready or Not, Nom Nom Paleo, is about paleo cooking for families. And that's the focus of that book. Run Fast, Eat Slow is about cooking to fuel athleticism. And Cooking Green is about environmentally conscious cooking. And it's everything from, cooking techniques and how to use your oven and your equipment and what equipment you should have and to choosing ingredients and composting and things. So that if you can see goal and focus already really help you hone what your book is going to be about. Like if you think about incorporating those 2 things, and you're not just creating a list of recipes when you list recipes, like Cynthia mentioned, you're curating recipes to create that experience, right? Even though Marcus Samuelsson has an Ethiopian and Scandinavian background, that's not going to be in this book, Red Rooster. That book is all about the cooking of Harlem, right? So you really need to think about these things that will help you curate and create that experience.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions on that, Shaun, if you don't mind. We have a lot of folks have been asking, there's recipe books, there's substance books, there's memoir versus just a straight cookbook. Is there a balance you should be striking in all of these, or does it go back to like, no, maybe some of them are literally just a memoir, some are just the recipes, or there's some balance, but that's for you to choose with your goal and focus?
I really strongly suggest limiting yourself to like one goal and one focus. I will tell you, like when I was in publishing, we really wanted authors who could, build a brand of books over time, like both Virginia and Cynthia have done. Like they've done multiple books. And you look at Virginia's books, all of them have different focuses, right? Foci? Focuses.
Foci.
But they all have a different focus. And so don't think like, your book is just going to be, that's the only time you'll ever get to do a book. If you have a good relationship with your publisher and you do well, they will want to do more with you. So don't think of it that way. Just have one focus and create one world for someone to really dive into. Okay. So think of it as a deep dive into one subject or one topic. Okay.
Great advice.
Yeah. So should we go to the next slide or do we have more questions?
We're ready.
Okay. The third thing that I really want people to work on, and both Virginia and Cynthia mentioned this, is voice, because that differentiates you from other people. And I've been teaching this, I've been doing this, for years because it really works. One of the exercises that I recommend is to get a bunch of roast chicken recipes, right? Roasting chicken is simple. Everybody can do it, right? And if you look at a bunch of different recipes, at the end of all of them, you will have a perfectly good roast chicken, right?
Mhm.
But the journey that each author takes you on to get to that delicious roast chicken is a different experience.
Mhm.
And so for today, I wanted to take a little snippet from one of Virginia's books for roast chicken and Cynthia's roast chicken recipe and compare them. They are both authors that specialize in Southern cooking, right?
Mhm.
But they have a different approach. And so let's kind of look at this. You'll see there on the left the lead into one of Cynthia's roast chicken recipes. And it says, a sign of a great cook is his or her ability to roast a chicken. It seems so easy. Just pop the bird in a pan and stick it in the oven. But just taking a few steps in between will produce a moist and tender bird fit for a Sunday mealtime centerpiece. What is that?
Classy.
Yeah, right? It tells you that she's going to show you how to take something that seems really simple and make it special. And she's going to be the person to guide you to that. Cynthia's books are about making you a dinner time hero and making the ordinary a little special, a little more special, a little extraordinary, right?
Mhm.
And she gives you that sense of confidence. So let's look at one of Virginia's roast chicken recipes, right? Mimi washed her chickens inside and out before cooking them, removing every last bit of fat, overlooked feathers, any bruises, blemishes, or blood spots. She said if you didn't, it tasted too chickeny. Now, where are you mentally right now?
In
Right?
her grandmother's kitchen, yeah.
Right. I am in my grandma's chicken. I don't even call my grandma Mimi, but I'm in the kitchen with her. I'm seeing her in the apron and the yellow walls and the wooden cabinetry, and and it's like she's talking to me like, if you don't do this, it's gonna taste too chickeny, girl. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and so she, so, excuse me, Virginia's books are about making you fall in love with the South, and she's
Mhm.
sharing what she loves about the South to help you fall in love with the South too, right?
Mhm.
And so she's giving you a sense of place, and really kind of helping to create the passion about a region and cuisine that she loves. And so I want you to think about developing your voice. And for real, I want you to go get a couple of roast chicken recipes. Anthony Bourdain's roast chicken recipe from Les Halles is a great one. I will never forget how to position my chicken in an oven because of the way he wrote it. And it wasn't just the head note, it was the instructions, right?
Mhm.
So don't think of the instructions as just a formula for, oil birds, sprinkle salt and pepper. It can be really literary too. Ed Lee is another great one. So pull a different, Julia Childs is a great one. Pull a bunch of different recipes, roast chicken or whatever you want, and see how they write it differently. And then start working on your own voice, because that's what makes you unique. And that's what gives, a lot of people love to use cookbooks just to read them like novels. They never cook, they just read them.
Yeah.
So give people that
They look
experience.
pretty out.
Yeah, and create that world. So finally, I want to talk about collaborating and getting it done. The first thing I want you to think of, because a cookbook is such a daunting project,
Mm.
you're not alone. And so, even though the author's name is big and bold on the cover, depending on the publishing house, there are anywhere from 10 to 50 people working on that book. Okay. And that's everybody from the editor you're working with to the the creative director and photographer, recipe testers, all the way to the people who are marketing and selling and handling the printing and all of that. Okay. So you're not alone. So don't feel like you're in this alone. But on the flip side, because you're not alone, you have to be really good at communicating with all of those people. Have a clear vision. Cynthia was not joking when she said your proposal is a roadmap. It's not just your way to get into the door with a publisher, but everybody is going to be working from that proposal on your vision. So you have to be clear about your goals and your focus to help drive that vision. You're bringing a team of people around, creating and helping you communicate the message that you're trying to share. Okay, so it's really important to communicate well, but know that you're not in it alone. There are experts there who can help you. You don't have to know it all. Your editor is there, your agent is there for you to help you produce a great cookbook. And finally, if you are not strong in one area, get help. You know, if you aren't a great writer, there are co-authors that you can hire. There are writers that you can hire to help you. You know, if a lot of chefs are good at plating for a dining experience, but they're not good at food styling. It's two totally different skills. So if you haven't done food styling for the camera, hire a food stylist, hire a prop stylist. There are people out there who can help you, and they're experts in doing the craft that it takes for you to communicate your message in every aspect of your book.
Yeah,
So
thank
those
you, Shaun.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope it's helpful. I do also have an online cookbook course, and I taught it a little over a year ago. I kind of dialed it down so I could work on my tech business. But because of the coronavirus, people are really diving into passion projects now. So if you go to the cookbookcourse.com, you can sign up. I'm dusting off this course, and I'm going to offer it on a pay what you can basis. It's self-guided. If you really don't have a lot of money, take it for free and do the whole thing. If it's valuable to you, then just send me what you can. We'll set it up later. But just check out the cookbookcourse.com if you'd like more.
Thanks, Shaun. That's very generous. Thank you so much. And I know I'm going to bring everybody back now, Virginia and Cynthia, if y'all are back. And we are going to do some questions now, but maybe Emily put up the slide that has everybody's picture and Instagram and everything on it so that they can, folks can still follow them. So y'all gave just a host of very good information, and I appreciate the journey that we went on today. And if you don't mind, we're going to go a little bit long. Is that okay for everybody? Maybe like 10 minutes? Okay, perfect. A lot of what we heard was, authenticity, knowing your voice, knowing who you are, showing them the team, doing your research, offering something the internet can't, having a personal board of directors, having a talent profile, having a headshot. Is now even a good time to be pitching? Or is now a time that we should be working on some other stuff? What do you think, Shaun? Is now a good time to be pitching if somebody's further along and has all this stuff?
Yeah, because it's a long cycle. Like typically at Time Inc., it would take anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 years to get a book out. It sounds like a long time. It goes by fast when you're working on it.
I bet.
But think about the fact that if you pitch something now, even if you got accepted by a publisher now, it's going to be 2 years before it hits the shelves.
Right. Good to know. And then we talked a little bit about e-cookbooks. That's something that at time it didn't really work out so well. If somebody's asking you to do an e-cookbook, they may be asking for it for free. It may not be something as compelling. It's not like easier, right? Was I right when I heard that?
It's not. I think that uh, a lot of people still want a print cookbook, especially people who are Gen X or older millennials are nervous about taking a device into the kitchen. There is technology coming out to make it a little bit easier so you don't have to keep waking up your screen, and get your screen all chickeny. But a lot, but there a lot of people still prefer a print cookbook, and it just did not do well for Time Inc. And I thought honestly we did it beautifully. But it just didn't do well. So I think print cookbooks are here to stay.
Perfect, excellent. And maybe a good question for Cynthia or Virginia. We got a lot of questions about how people know their recipe is authentic and they're afraid that they maybe remembered someone else's recipe that they think is their own. How can you check that your roast chicken recipe is proprietary to you? If it's not something you learned in cooking school or you picked up along the way, how can you make sure that you're not accidentally plagiarizing someone?
Cynthia, do you want to take it?
Sure. I think so. Plagiarism is one thing, and copyright is another whole subject, which is that recipes are not able to be copyrighted, but the list of you can make everybody makes roast chicken with a chicken and salt and pepper. So that aspect is going to be universal. What makes it unique, even if it's a recipe that you're not sure of the origin, you're going to make that recipe differently than the original recipe. So long as you are looking at that chicken as your chicken and how you make it, and you write in your words how you make it, and then you tell them in the head note why you do this chicken, why they should do this chicken, and what to look for, any particular pitfalls, then that recipe becomes your own.
Yeah.
But you cannot straight up copy somebody's recipe and slap a new head note on it and think you're done.
Mm-hmm. What about if you made, let's say there's certain chefs that make a dish, for a restaurant, and that restaurant becomes very famous for that particular dish. Now that chef made that and they move on from that restaurant. Do they still own that recipe?
They better check their contract, because that is usually spelled out. If they have signed a contract, they'll definitely know. Virginia, do you have a?
No, I would agree with especially like restaurant recipes and things like that. And that's where it goes back to what I spoke to at the beginning about, being super clear. If you're the chef owner of an establishment and you want to write a cookbook, there's a difference between, the first name that came to mind. So Mike Lotta, restaurant chef, owner of Fig and The Ordinary and all that. Is it going to be even Mike, Beard Award winner, successful restaurateur? Is it the Mike Lotta cookbook, or is it the Fig cookbook, which is now Jason Stanhope, right? So things like that. This is a business, and this is all. There is some feel good feelings that come out of reading and writing cookbooks, but it's all a business, and it's all got to be made super clear.
Yeah, and on that same vein, and maybe Shaun, this is a good question for you, but really for everyone. Folks are wondering how well a remix on the classics would do. Is that distasteful to say I'm going to take The Joy of Cooking, or I'm going to take Alice Waters' The Art of Simple Food and show you how I made a twist on it? Like, is that cool or is that not cool?
Pretty ballsy. Oh, you go ahead and improve on Alice Waters. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Good luck with that.
That was a bless your heart for all of you who are not Southern and did not catch that. That's a bless your heart, and we're going to flag that as a maybe not. Maybe remix on the
I'm sorry, Shaun. I didn't mean to overdo that.
No, that's cool. That's totally perfect. Focus on what you have to offer. Why are you trying to copy somebody else?
Yeah.
There's only one you, and you only have a short time on this earth. Be you and get you out there.
Yes. Don't Julia and Julie and Julia your first cookbook or your second. It might.
Well, not only that, it's been done, right?
It's been done.
Julie did it, right? So, I think that the three of us would wholeheartedly agree. And Shaun, I love the way you just said it. You be you. And you can't worry about what's going to sell, and you can't worry about what's going to be popular in 2 years, and you can't worry about another pandemic or the sky is falling or anything like that. If you want to write a cookbook, you have to write that cookbook. And you have to write it because it's what is in your head and your heart and your belly. And hopefully the stars will align and the agent will come and the publishing company will come and the advance will come and all of that. But trying to back into a situation where you're like going for that award or going for that big paycheck or something like that, I think I would say, I would wholeheartedly say it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way. Yeah, that's the same thing we say about the James Beard Awards, right? Cook your best, be yourself, and be rewarded. But if your goal is to get the award, it's a very difficult path to get there, and much more frustrating one. A lot of folks want to know, you just said, the agent will come, the publicist will come. How and when do you get an agent, and how do you know if they're a good one?
It's a complicated question. Some of it's a little bit more so than others, but my thing is, what I would say is it's a business relationship, just like any other business relationship, and you have to make sure that that person works in the way that you work in that way, and it's got to be a partnership. So I'll let Cynthia and Shaun speak to this one a little bit more.
I was unagented for a very long time, and a few of the books that I did as collaborations, my co-author had an agent, so that was helpful. I've also written books where I was approached directly by the publisher to write, and I did not have an agent. But by then I had done enough contracts that I felt like I had a fairly good idea of what was negotiable and what wasn't. I am represented now, and I think that, you know, you find agents by looking at people who have agents and who they have and what kind of relationship they have and whether or not they feel like they're heard and represented by their agent. The tried and true method is to crack open a book, and every author thanks their agent, whether they like their agent or not. But at least you get a list of names that you can then research, and you want to find someone that has a deep enough experience in cookbooks, or at the very least a deep nonfiction list, because those editors are much different than folks that specialize in fiction.
Yeah, and this is a very broad topic on how to get an agent and whatnot that I know all of you have more information to share on. So we're going to, you'll get everybody's contact information from today to follow up or to take their classes, because I think we could probably do a whole webinar on just getting an agent. But for the folks out there who are talking about self-publishing, we have two questions about self-publishing in a different area. One is, if somebody wants to just make a little cookbook for their friends and family of their favorite recipes, they're not trying to get it on TV or make a big deal out of it, or even really maybe even make any money on it, is there a software or a service or something that helps you put together a cookbook?
Yes, there is a company based here in Atlanta called Cookbook, Create My Cookbook.
Okay.
And it's a really cool, the guy's a software developer, and he's created this tool where you can upload all of your, you can like scan your grandma's handwritten recipe cards and they will type them out for you. But you can upload your recipes, you can upload your photos, or they connect to like one of the like Pexels or something where you can choose photos from there. You can choose covers, you can choose your binding, and you can get a cookbook that way. And you can choose however many you want to print. So if you're doing a family reunion book or a wedding book or a family keepsake, or even, you know, some of his clients are like small cafes or church groups and civic groups, you can do that. So that's out there. It's called Create My Cookbook.
And I know on that same note, if it's something small just like that, there's a couple platforms that I find really helpful on a lot of different levels. Canva, CANVA, and they have a template for a cookbook cover, but I was just playing around to create an ebook just for kicks and giggles. And you can create a printable PDF through Canva. And another program that I wanted to mention that's just a little bit different, but Ripple. But Canva has some of that. So if people just want to create something for their own, they can use a program there. And then just, I think a little bit, the next level of self-publishing would be, you know, like I think Sarah Foster won not a Beard Award, but an IACP award with a self-published book. So there's Story Farms, which is a company in Florida, and they make incredible books, award-winning books. The deal with self-publishing is that it's those 50 people that Shaun talked about, it's you.
You don't have them.
Self-publishing, you don't have them, right? I mean, you do have some. There's a designer, there's certain things, but in terms of sales and in terms of a lot of things, it's all up to you. And then the part that I think would be even more challenging about the self-publishing is the marketing and selling of the actual product, i.e. the book.
Right. And like in the case of my grandmother's little book, this was published by Morris Press Cookbooks. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, that's a publisher. What is working with someone like that like?
They specialize actually in community and fundraising cookbooks primarily, although you can produce a book through them. It's a terrific way to go if that's what you're looking for. And they've got a couple of competitors as well, although Morris Press has been around for decades, and that's a good option. But Virginia's correct. It's very easy to publish a cookbook. It's quite different. You can get 5,000 cookbooks in your garage, but getting 5,000 cookbooks out of your garage is a whole nother thing. And that's why even if you self-publish, you want to take a look at that proposal and understand your marketing and how are you going to reach that audience. I do want to say just one thing about e-cook, which is I was stunned. I wrote, co-authored Southern Biscuits, and which is still selling today, thank goodness. We had tremendous e-cookbook sales, shocking high e-cookbook sales. What we discovered, people were buying a second copy.
Oh.
And they put it on their iPad when they go to their beach house. They've got their biscuit recipes with them. So it's not necessarily that people prefer. I do think people prefer to cook from print, and they're still buying cookbooks. But that's not to say that not also having an ebook option is bad. And so if you just want to test the waters, put yourself together a short e-cookbook and put it on your website and charge $2.99 for it and see what kind of response you get. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's a good way to test the market.
We do have another question about including chef-inspired or other chefs directly, famous chefs, recipes. If somebody was wanting to do a cookbook for their restaurant and they wanted to include past chefs who have been at that restaurant and it was only going to be sold at their restaurant, is that wise? Or
I think you need to secure permissions for that. So you need to contact all of those chefs or their agents or attorneys to get permission. And one other thing I'll say about chef cookbooks, which I don't think either of us mentioned, is that you can't just take a restaurant recipe and divide it down and then put that in your book and you think that'll work. It just won't. You really do have to test it for a home kitchen. Leavenings don't divide down very successfully that way. You do have to test it. Not everybody has a salamander at home, as much as I wish I did. So you really do have to, a home recipe, a recipe becomes a different thing when it's taken from a restaurant kitchen to a home kitchen. So yeah, but you do have to get permission to republish recipes.
And I think a lot of chefs, I mean, I know that in my last book I have, in Secrets of the Southern Table, I had restaurant recipes, chef restaurant recipes that I sort of tweaked and changed for the home cook, and I acknowledge them in the head note. And I've also included like other cookbook authors or family members or things like that, and I acknowledge it in the head note and talk about it that way. So it's definitely possible, but obviously, if someone says, well, I'd rather not because I want to do my own cookbook, then there's that. Unfortunately, I think that's sort of it's sort of incorrect, because regardless, if your take on that recipe is going to probably be different, but it's always nice to ask.
Yes. Friends, we have so many more questions, and this is a topic that is deeply interesting to so many people that I know you all have put tons of years into working these and having failures, having successes, having friends that have done the same thing, and you all have advanced courses in this. So what I want to sort of come to now is these topics like how to get an agent, how to price, how to build your team, how to build your audience. Stuff like that is going to be things that you're going to need a lot more time in a professional course to get to those levels on. And so Shaun shared with us that you can go to the cookbookcourse.com. That's hers. Cynthia and Virginia, would you share with us the course that you're working on?
Virginia and I are launching culinary media training, and we'd love to help you build your brand and improve your online presence, whether it's your social media or whether it's the future of being in studio or doing lives from your home kitchen. Where we'd love to help you with that. We do consulting. Virginia, you want to talk some more?
Yeah, it's really, it actually sort of auspicious that we're going to launch it today, because we had culinarymediatraining.com. We were going to launch it a couple weeks ago, and with the virus hit, we delayed the launch. And then so when Vitus reached out and asked us about this, it seemed sort of perfect. So it's really let us help you tell your story. And whether that's on a cookbook or a video or whatever that may be, we're here. And we mentioned it a couple of times, and I think it's super appropriate. It's not just sharing success, it's sharing failures. because if you don't learn from the mistakes, then you can't progress and move forward. So if people go to culinarymediatraining.com, they can learn more about what Cynthia and I are going to do and help you out.
And this webinar was recorded. I know I personally will be listening to it again, mostly because all y'all's voices soothe me in this time. You feel like you have your best friend there to be like, girl, maybe don't, or
It's
yes,
okay. It's gonna be okay.
Bless your hearts, all that. So if you missed anything like who the scientific menu testers are, or any of the other questions that relate to stuff that we were talking so fast about, you'll be able to go back. Emily will send this out to everybody on the list, and it'll live on our website. So you'll be able to go there and listen to it as many times as you want, forward it on to a friend or somebody who didn't get a chance to come into that. And then I want to remind you one more time, culinarymediatraining.com and the Cookbook Course.com. That's where you're going to get more information on walkthroughs as to like how we can actually do these kind of things, and a little bit of a deeper level on getting your cookbook out, getting your brand set up. If you were at our TikTok clinic last week, you know that a lot of the things that we talked about today were exactly the same. Know yourself, be honest to that. Have your talent profile ready, know who's on your team, be authentic, and really just do your best to be honest when you're going through these things, because that's going to make all the difference in the world. And if you are a shy person and you're more literary than you are out on the TikToks and the Instagrams, maybe just throw up a couple TikToks and Instagrams, because they're going to be looking at that full picture of who you are as a person, who you are as an artist, who you are as a chef, and then connecting with that so that they have something to sell, because it's going to be you that they're selling. So I want to thank you, Shaun and Cynthia and Virginia, for being here with me today. I want to thank everybody who joined on the webinar. If you have any more questions, you can email us. We'll be sending out this webinar, more information. You'll get the slides from today, so you'll even have those little checklists, and join us for the rest of the week. Tomorrow we have cash management and loans that we'll be negotiating. We've got our favorite, Rachel Sheeran. Anybody who's been through any of the women's programs knows Rachel Sheeran, our certified behavioral analyst and coach. She'll be with us on Wednesday talking about motivation. We're going to discuss the state of seafood with Barton and the crew on Thursday, and then we'll be having a quarantini on Friday, of course, and we'll have Distinguished Vineyards here, who's going to be talking about how coronavirus has affected the wine industry and what they see for the future of wine. So thank you again for being here, friends, and we will see y'all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bon appetit, y'all.